Hello class, I hope this video finds y'all doing very well. Can you believe it that we are already into our third week? We are almost halfway through the class. By Wednesday it will be midterms, so congratulations on making it this far. So we're going to do a couple different things with our lectures today. We're going to talk a lot about different types of trauma therapy, roadblocks, some of those sorts of things. I know your texts focus very heavily on assessment and rapport building, so I wanted to make sure, of course, that we're just taking a different avenue as we continue to talk about crisis intervention, trauma therapy, those sorts of things. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right into it. We're going to talk about two different kinds of trauma therapy. Now, of course, when somebody's gone through trauma or a crisis situation, there's a variety of different therapies that can be used. But there's two in specific that I wanted to highlight because they are some of the most proven methods for working with people who have undergone a lot of trauma, stress, crisis, and those sorts of things. The first one is called TFCBT, which stands for Trauma-Focused Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. This is one that I'm trained in. I received this certification when I was working for a community mental health agency. And this is a really great approach, I feel like, when somebody has gone through a trauma that isn't necessarily something that's haunting them all the time, like a PTSD type thing. So this would be somebody who's very aware of the trauma that's gone on, but maybe doesn't have those symptoms where it's like replaying in dreams or those sorts of things. Now that this trauma does work for that also, but this is just how I found it to be helpful. There's an acronym that goes with TFCBT called PRACTICE, which stands for Psychoeducation, Relaxation, Affect Regulation and Modulation, Cognitive Distortions, the Trauma Narrative, In Vivo Exposure, Cognitive Distortions again, let's see, PRACTICE, Enhancing Safety. And so basically what you're going to do is you're going to go through and you're going to build a lot of resources as the client is beginning to prepare to tell their trauma narrative, where they were at in it, the emotions and the thoughts that went around it, some of the cognitive distortions. And then we're going to go back in, we'll do in vivo therapy, which is reacclimating the client into whatever that anxiety, trauma, stress-provoking situation might be. And then rediscussing cognitive distortions as it pertains coming out of that trauma narrative, and then enhancing safety, which is going to be making sure that we've got safety plans in place, a group of people that are supportive and stable, and all of those sorts of things. It's a really, really great therapy to use. And what I found also is that those pieces can be broken down really easily and pulled out for specific clients. So for instance, I might use affect regulation and modulation with many clients, but I might not go all the way through a trauma narrative. So TFCBT offers a lot of really great resources. The second trauma-based therapy that I want to give just a little bit of insight behind is called EMDR, which stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing, EMDR. Now this is one, if you have been in my marriage and family class, that you've heard me talk about a little bit, and we'll talk about it a little bit more at length in this particular lecture and the following lectures for this week. But EMDR is actually a newer therapy created by Francine Shapiro, and what she found is that a lot of times in traumatic situations, our brain is not able to fully reprocess the events that are coming at us. So what EMDR does is it helps you to access both sides of the brain and be able to go back into those traumatic moments or anxiety-provoking, anything like that, reprocess the stressful event and move it essentially from the front of your brain all the way to the back of your brain. We're going to talk about later on in our lecture videos what the brain process is, but that's all you need to know about that. But with EMDR, what's very, very interesting is how successful it is with clients who have gone under severe trauma. And in fact, this therapy is recognized as so successful and so effective that what will happen is the U.S. military has adopted this. So for soldiers that have been in particularly traumatic situations, what they might end up doing is sending a soldier back to the U.S. for the weekend, doing intensive EMDR sessions, reprocessing everything that's happened to them, and then sending them back overseas into the battlefield to continue serving their country. And what we're finding is that this process is actually very effective. So soldiers are able to process as they're going along, and they're coming home without this PTSD-like symptoms and able to acclimate back into life in a very, very functional way.